Okay, so good day everyone. Our topic for today is about project tools, no? Again, project tools is a vital rule, has a vital role in advanced project planning and implementation, particularly in public administration, where projects are complex, multi-stakeholders, and resource constrained. These tools provide structured methods for translating policy goals and development plans no into actionable, dapat measurable at dapat manageable project activities. In a doctoral level, no, public administration, project tools are not viewed merely as technical instrument but as a strategic enablers that support evidence-based decision making, accountability, and effective governance throughout the project life cycle. So in the public sector context, no, project tools help administrators anticipate risk, allocate resources efficiently, monitor progress, and evaluate outcomes against intended public value. So from planning and scheduling to risk management and performance measurement, these tools allow public managers to navigate uncertainty, comply with regulatory requirements, and ensure transparency. So mastery of project tools equips future public leaders with the capacity to design projects that are both technically sound and responsive to institutional and societal demands. At this point, may we now give the floor to our presenter to discuss the key project tools used in project planning and implementation, including their application, their strengths, and limitations in the public sector. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Doc, classmates, can you hear me? Audible po ba
Yes,
ako?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, sis. Naririnig po.
Thank you po. Can you see my presentation po?
Yes, Doc.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, thank you po. Okay, so good afternoon, Doc Marmelo. Good afternoon, fellow classmates. My name is Christopher De Jesus. I'll be the one in charge to present this afternoon project tools, which are basically used when it comes to project implementation. I'll be discussing several important project tools that many public administrators use, specifically talking about delivery of public service. We have WBS, Gantt, CPM, and PERT. Ito po yung mga sumusunod. So I have here my topic outline, an introduction, followed by the work breakdown structure, the Gantt chart, critical path method, program evaluation and review technique or the PERT method. Then I'll end up with the strength and limitations and my conclusion. So to start with, many of our project managers today have already had the luxury of using different kinds of project tools. These are important because these are set of structural and scheduling tools that are needed in order for a project to become successful. Usually, the so-called structure or should I say scheduling tools are used to plan, estimate, execute, monitor, and control projects. And there are basically four fundamental tools that we're going to have or to present this afternoon. This would be the WBS or the work breakdown structure, the Gantt chart, the critical path method, and the program evaluation and review technique or PERT method. Normally, as part of the government or you belong to specific or particular government agencies, we are already aware and probably familiar with the various types of fundamental tools that you use in order to plan, execute, estimate, and even monitor and control the projects leading to its success so that we'll be able to carry on the necessary importance or duty and function of the government to provide public service. So these so-called tools have distinct purpose and is often used together um, to be able to create a meaningful project and successful implementation of such project or program. Okay, for the next slide, we focus on the work breakdown structure. So the work breakdown structure is mainly a hierarchical, deliverable, oriented, showing the total scope of a project. Usually they are broken down in manageable components. So it's easier for us to determine which is the most important part of the so-called schedule leading to the success of the project from level 1 to level 4. So when we have this, we'll be able to create a more decisive foundation for the schedule, cost estimating, and even responsibility assignments task to those who are going to implement the program or the project. So here we can say that the main purpose and benefit of a work breakdown structure or WBS is it defines and documents project scope clearly. So if you'd notice in my what do you call this image on the right side of your screen, it says there the basic elements that can be found in a WBS structure or WBS toolkit. So from the project itself to those who are going to be able to, or should I say, agencies that are needed in order for the project to become a reality, we have the administration, procurement, construction, testing and commissioning, and mobilization. And as for level 3, this is where all the work has been doing or has been done rather. So we have here the site work, the footings, floor slab, framing, roof system. This is basically a project for construction. So today we have several issues with regards to flood control, no, in our country. And I think most of the projects of the government and basically all the projects has to pass through the so-called work breakdown structure because this is very relevant. And as for the level 4 naman, on the other hand, no, we have here those that are eventually needed in order to complete all the necessary project. So at the end of the day, we say that a work breakdown structure provides the basis for activity definition, resource assignment, cost estimate, and risk analysis. And it also tries to improve communication by creating a common map for all project deliverables of any agencies for that matter. So yung sample ko po dito ay may kinalaman sa isang construction ng isang building project. Okay? Next po would be number 3 or Roman numeral number 3, the Gantt chart. The Gantt chart is also one of the most common project toolkit that many of our agencies of the government have been using. If the work breakdown structure gave us the entirety of the project as to the scope of the work, the Gantt chart, on the other hand, shows to us the start and the finish dates. Usually, it can also show the progress, milestones, and even the dependencies or those are still needed or somewhat deficiencies to be able to come up with a complete project. So the purpose and benefits of a Gantt chart for any public administrator or any project manager for that matter is first, it visualizes the schedule and duration of activities. Normally, it gives us clarity. In fact, when you talk about clarity, it makes every participants or every agencies of the government or probably those offices involved in the certain project would be able to see the entire task start and finish dates of particular project. And this is very important and useful for status reporting. So we can actually provide everybody yung pong visual side of the project so that they would know where is the project already or how is the project doing. Are there actually finished areas or there are other areas that are not yet been done or currently in progress. And number 3, this is the most commonly produced in project tools. Usually, the typical usage of the Gantt chart is for government project progress reports, which shows phases with milestone dates and even the percentage completion or completed. So this is what, for example, a form of a Gantt chart, no, also used, no, for a construction of a building. So notice that in this part of the Gantt chart, it also included the WBS or yung work base structure, or rather breakdown structure. So if you'd notice, there are what we call activity ID on column 1, and then there's also the activity name and the time scale of the weeks. This is where the Gantt chart happens, no? So obviously through this you'll be able to see the specific tasks or the works that should be done in a specific time frame so that the project will be able to finish on time. So from WBS1, so these are the leveling. You see the groundwork, WBS2, structural works, WBS3, we have finishing work, WBS4, electrical works, and finally we have WBS5, mechanical works. So from the start of the project down to its last phase of finishing touches of the project can be actually seen here. And then there's also the time scale where you would be seeing the important dates or weeks or number of weeks necessary for a particular part of the project to be completed. So ito po yung example ng Gantt chart natin. Next part po would be critical path method or what we call CPM. So the CPM is rather a deterministic network analysis technique for scheduling a set of project activities. So what we are trying to look over here is the critical path. Kaya nga po it's called critical path method because most of the projects that are carried out, let's say government projects or implementation of programs of the government, has to be successful. However, with the use of this toolkit, we'll be able to make sure that they would become successful. The critical path is said to be the longest sequence of dependent tasks that determines project duration, meaning the time frame, how when the project will end or will become a success. So we're actually looking at the critical path have a zero total float because any delays on them would mean delays on the project finish. Kasi along the way po of project implementation, we are always encountering mga delays po. So in order for us to minimize those delays or to remove delays and to be able to finish the project on time, we have to find that critical path o yung tinatawag po nating zero total float. Usually, this happens when we use the critical path method. The main purpose of the benefits of the CPM or yung critical path method is it identifies which activities control project duration and where to focus monitoring and resources. So mainly, along the project implementation, there might be instances that there are areas that tend to lack focus and lack monitoring. And at the same time, it might also have the lacking of resources. So obviously with the use of the CPM, it would provide more focus or more attention towards the details that need to be included, or I would say that should be provided for specifically towards the use of other resources in order for particular projects to be finished and to become a success. Number two benefit of the critical path method technique is to enable calculation of earliest and latest start or finish times, the float, and more accurate scheduling and resource leveling. Usually, this is used sa mga bigger infrastructure and engineering projects. Um, Kasi why? Because this CPM usually produce baseline schedules and to run on what-if scenarios for crash or fast-track planning. When you say what-if scenarios, if there would be delays, then it would be able to address properly so that the delays won't be able to delay the outcome of the project. Next, the key steps rather for the critical path method. So usually we start with the list of the activities and then followed by established dependencies. So creating those work parts no of the project. Then you draw the network diagram. The type of diagram, a simple diagram was placed in our presentation. This is the upper part of your the image in your right screen or right side of your screen. That's the drawing of the network diagram. And then you have the estimate activity completion time, and the identification of the critical path. So in the second image, you would see here the identification of the critical path, which is obviously doon sa middle part where you have the zero or the float. In order to determine the success of the particular program of a particular government agency, so we need to make sure that the critical path will be addressed properly, whether these are for resources or monitoring or focus on the other aspects of the project. Next, number 5 is the so-called program evaluation and review technique or the PERT method. So the PERT method is a probabilistic scheduling method developed in the 1950s. The CPM is a deterministic method, while the PERT is the probabilistic method. No, it models activity durations with optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic estimates to compute expected durations and project completion probabilities. So, how and why is this very important as a toolkit? Because more often than not, many projects or government projects or implementations of government projects do not go according to plan. There might be instances of delays or other uncertain things that might actually affect the implementation of the program or of the project. So this is actually used. So through the program evaluation and review technique, it uses what we call a uh, three uh, three-time estimations. That's how you call it. And usually, through these three-time estimations, you'll be able to compute the expected time. And this would be able to help the implementation no and the success of a government project or program. Usually, this is the most complicated of all the type of project toolkit that public administrators are actually using in the implementation of government projects. The typical usage of the PERT is through research and development and even in defense and highly uncertain programs. So at the left side of your screen, it's how the PERT formula is being done. So the legend says the OT represents the optimistic time, and then the MLT represents the most likely time, and the pessimistic time is for PT. So when you compute this and divide into 6, you are supposed to get the expected time. So the expected time is the most feasible time or period that a particular project of the government can actually be finished. So, as per explanation, optimistic estimates are the shortest time required to complete the task. And as for pessimistic estimates, this would be the longest time required to complete the task. And the most likely estimate would be the most possible time or probable duration required to complete the task. When you compute it, you get the expected time uh, that the project will be able to finish. So at some point, with the use of this model, we'll be able to um, help tasks that may be uncertain to be able to be finished or to be done. So another way of looking at it, no, this PERT method follows an example of a project manager of a power plant project. So through PERT method, they will be able to track the steps mentioned above and listed the following inputs. So you have there the activities on the first column, then you have the predecessors, and another column for optimistic duration, pessimistic duration, and then most likely duration plus yung expected duration. So, for example, when we already identify the most important parts of the activity, the description, so you have to lay it down and put it there in a chart format or table format, and then you address them properly, whether for example in this case you have the start milestone, select technical staff, then we have site survey, select equipment, prepare designs, bring utilities to the site, interview applicants and fill positions, purchase the equipment, construct the power plant, develop an information system, install the equipment, train the staff to run the system. So, using the PERT method, you will be able to determine the expected duration on how and when the power plant will be able to function. So notice that using this PERT method, we have, let's say, for example, um, in here, select technical staff. So this would start from the milestone, and through probability, the optimistic probability of getting it done, of selecting technical staff, would be 12, let's say 12 weeks. But the most pessimistic duration was around 18 weeks for you to be able to select technical staff. But the most likely duration to be able to select technical staff would be 15. So for you to be able to get yung expected duration, so you have to use the formula, and that formula will end up with the expected duration of 15 weeks. So most probably, for you to be able to get the selected technical staff to administer or to run the power plant will give you 15 weeks to do that. And then the rest also will follow. Like, for example, site survey, the most pessimistic duration of be able to get the job done, talking about site survey, was actually 12 weeks. Whereas the most optimistic would be 6 weeks. And then the most likely duration of getting the job done under site survey is 9 weeks. So the expected duration is around 9 weeks. Then the rest will follow as well. So what I'm trying to say here is the fact that when we use the PERT method, we'll be able to make sure that there are uncertainties, or there are areas or times that are uncertain, that would be able to provide better approach to finish the project. So how mostly these different project tools work together? So for the WBS, we decompose the scope into deliverables and work packages. So yun yung gamit niya, no? To be able to make that the scope of the project more ideal and more achievable with the the divisions of this into various work packages and deliverables, it's expected that the project will be a success. Then, using activity definition and sequencing, um, this will convert work packages to activities and then sequence them. And then number three, estimate durations and resources. This will now use CPM method or critical path. And then you have the Perth method for the probabilistic side of it. Then schedule for visualize. Usually this is the build CPM and Perth network and convert results to a Gantt chart for reporting and tracking. So some examples of government projects that actually use the tools. Example was the U.S. Navy Polaris program, late 1950s. They were able to use the Perth that developed to manage the complex, highly uncertain program schedules and coordination among contractors and the Navy. This is also canonical and documented origin case for Perth. Another important program that used the PERT and the CPM techniques for planning and scheduling, the NASA Apollo program of 1960s for the moon landing. Multiple NASA technical reports and conference proceedings documents use PERT and supporting software. As for contemporary government uses of the project tools, World Bank development projects usually use this project toolkit. The World Bank training and the project guidance include CPM and Perth method as a scheduling techniques and encourage their application for complex development projects. World Bank project documents and training PDFs show CPM in course materials and practical application examples. So what is the World Bank? The World Bank is an important international financial institution that provides money or funds, no, for development projects in areas or in places where there is needed development. Let's say case of Philippines, the Philippines would want to develop a project that will help the country progress. So the Philippines will seek the World Bank approval for, let's say, for the money. So if the World Bank will be able to provide us the money that we'll be using for development projects, the World Bank will be using the CPM and Perth scheduling in order to make sure that the development project will start and finish accordingly. Okay? Then as for example in the Philippines, government practice, one of the main agencies that use these tools or project development kit would be the Department of Public Works and Highways. The DPWH project templates, department orders, and procurement project documentation and reference schedule techniques use the bar charts or yung Gantt, the Perth, and CPM. The DPWH has issued department orders adopting precedents, diagramming methods, and standard construction durations. Local project documents such as municipal or zonal project durations or submissions rather. Then they commonly attach the Gantt chart in order to make sure that they'll be able to create a visual representation of that project and its schedule for particular stakeholders. This shows that the Philippine government construction projects explicitly expect and use these scheduling tools often. Now, as for their strengths and limitations, the WBS or the for the strength, WBS usually clarifies um, the scope and it supports costing and assignment. The only problem for WBS is that it doesn't show the time sequencing or resource contention. This is shown usually by the Gantt chart and with the use of other project tools such as the CPM or the PERT method. As for the Gantt chart, its main strength is that it's intuitive visual schedule for stakeholders. So usually for status reporting, like if there is a meeting and then there's the official of the government who would want to see the development and the progress of the project, the Gantt chart is the best basis for them to see the progress of the project because the Gantt chart is not highly technical as compared to the CPM and the PERT method. But the limitation of the Gantt chart is the fact that it is not basically used for large projects because you produce crowded Gantt charts because it's a bigger project. So normally, it's limited to smaller ones, and it does not by itself identify the critical path or probabilistic risks because normally, just like what we mentioned kanina, there are instances that projects might be delayed or there might be uncertainties that will come our way in the implementation process. So there are basically risks, and in the Gantt chart, it cannot be shown there and even identify where the critical path or the risk will happen. For CPM, on the other hand, or the critical path method, so you have here its main strength because it identifies the critical path, which is, of course, important in the eventual success of a particular project implementation. Next is that it supports deterministic optimization, talking about where to focus, let's say, for example, resources and pouring in the resources in order for the project to be a success. However, there's also one limitation because in using CPM, we assume that there's a fixed task duration. Okay? And at the end of the day, this might underrepresent uncertainties. So, yung mga uncertainties might not actually be taken into account. And this is where the PERT or yung project evaluation, review, and technique will be used or yung PERT method. And its main strength is that it explicitly models uncertainties and it provides the most probabilistic completion estimates for particular projects of our government. But of course, its limitation is that it relies on the quality of 3-point estimates. And normally, this is computationally heavier and less intuitive to non-technical stakeholders. So you cannot use it if you want to explain to those who are non-technical officials or stakeholder of the project. Normally, we use the Gantt chart for this or the other project toolkit like the WBS. So, in order to use project evaluation review technique, we use a software that will make this much easier, no, to conduct. And then, for my conclusion, I'm sorry. Yeah, for my conclusion, WBS, Gantt, CPM, and PERT method formed a cohesive toolkit for planning and controlling projects. I mean, all of us in the government, we wanted any project or any program implemented to be a success because at the end of the day, um, the government is there to provide basic services to the people. And if this uh, project implementation will help the people live comfortably, then I guess we are doing our part as government officials or as part of the government with the use of various project toolkits. Then it also developed and adopted methods and continue to require or recommend them through agency manual, procurement templates, and project delivery guidance. So with the use of these different project toolkits, it helped any agency to create their own manuals of proceedings, procurement templates, and guidance or rules in the implementation of different projects depending on which kind of government, whether it's in the DPWH, the SWD, Department of Science and Technology, and so forth and so on. Then, another conclusion that I arrive at is that um, project toolkits are used, selected with the right combination. Okay, because sometimes there are always, or there are what we call project uncertainties, and at the same time we have the size of the project that might be big or small, depending on if these are big infrastructure projects or big ticket projects of the government, and also it depends on the stakeholders' needs. And lastly, the use of WBS for scope, and for deterministic schedule control, we use CPM or critical path method. And then for probabilistic scheduling, when uncertainties happen, we use the PERT or yung project evaluation review technique method. And for clear stakeholder reporting, we use the Gantt charts. These are my references. Thank you, classmates, for listening. Thank you to Dean Marmelo for giving me the chance and the opportunity. Magandang hapon po sa lahat.
Wow, thank you so much for of course, for the input, no? Very okay. So as what our presenter mentioned, project tools begin with planning instruments that clarify project scope, project objectives, and expected results. No, tools such as logical frameworks, problem trees and result frameworks help public administrators align project with policy priorities and development goals. And these tools, the tools cited by our discussant, establish logical linkages between inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. Scheduling and time management tools are essential for organizing project activities and managing deadlines. As what our presenter mentioned, Gantt chart, network diagrams, and critical path methods allow our project managers to visualize task sequences, identify dependencies, and anticipate bottlenecks. In public projects, these tools are particularly important because delays often have legal, political, and the most important is the budgetary implications. Budgeting and cost control tools support responsible use of public funds and strengthen financial accountability. Cost estimates, cash flow projection, and earned value analysis help track expenditures against plans and identify variances early. And these tools enable public administrators to justify resource allocation. We could able to prevent cost overruns and comply with audit and reporting requirements. Risk management tools assist in identifying, analyzing, and mitigating uncertainties that may affect project implementation. Risk registers, SWOT analysis, and scenario planning allow project teams to anticipate political, technical, financial, and environmental risks. In the public sector, proactive risk management enhance project resilience and protect institutional credibility. Monitoring and evaluation tools provide mechanism for assessing project performance and learning from implementation experiences. So key performance indicators, lagi na KPI, OPCR, IPCR, dashboard, progress reports, and evaluation frameworks help determine whether projects are achieving intended results. So these tools support evidence-based adjustment during implementation and inform future policy and project decisions. So project tools functions as integrated system rather than isolated techniques, and their effective use requires not only technical competence but also leadership, judgment, and contextual awareness. So as doctoral students in public administration, understanding how and when to apply project tools strengthen your ability to manage complex public initiative, deliver public value, and promote sustainable development outcomes. Now, I always hear this one, no? Uh, how we will be able to compare, no? So what will be the comparison? Actually, our presenter also give us, no, the comparative overview of the key project tools. So as what they have mentioned, no, WBS is scope definition tool that breaks a project into manageable components or work packages. No? So its strength lies in clarifying what must be done and preventing scope creep. However, W breakdown or work breakdown structure does not address time sequencing, duration, or uncertainty, making it insufficient as a standalone planning tool. About Gantt charts. Now, Gantt charts are visually scheduling tools that show activities plotted against time. No, they are easy to understand and effective for communication with our stakeholders and decision makers. Their limitation is that they often oversimplify complex dependencies and do not clearly identify which tasks are critical to project completion. The critical path method is analytical scheduling tool. So as you can see, they have their own different usage. No? So critical path method is an analytical scheduling tool that identifies the longest sequence of dependent activities determining the project minimum duration. It is a powerful time optimization and resource of prioritization. However, critical path method, no, assumes activity durations are fixed and predictable, which is often unrealistic in public sector projects. So, PERT or Program Evaluation and Review Techniques or PERT addresses uncertainty by using probabilistic time estimates. Optimistic, most likely pessimistic. Now, it is useful for research-driven, innovative, or policy-based projects. Now, its weakness lies in its complexity and reliance on subjective estimates, which can reduce accuracy if expert judgment is weak. So it means to say, as what our presenter mentioned, ang focus kasi ng WBS is scope and deliverables. Gantt chart, time visualization. CPM, time optimization and control. PERT, managing uncertainty. Best use when? Kailan ba magandang gamitin sa WBS? So WBS in defining work and responsibility. Gantt chart in communicating schedule. CPM in managing deadlines and constraint. PERT in dealing with unknown and risk. So what will be the main limitations? Again, for WBS, no timing logic. No? For Gantt chart, no weak dependency analysis. For critical path method, rigid assumption. And for PERT, diagram estimation subjectivity. So challenges in using project tools. One major challenge is the mechanical use of tools without contextual understanding. Tools are often treated as compliance requirements rather than decision support system. Okay? When project managers focus on producing charts instead of managing realities on the ground, tools lose their strategic value. No? Another challenge is poor quality data and assumptions. No? Schedules, cost estimates, and risk analysis are only as good as the inputs used. Because in public administration, data gaps, political pressures, and unrealistic timelines often distort planning outputs, leading to false confidence. Capacity and competency gaps also limit tool effectiveness. No? Many project failures occur not because tools are absent, but because project teams lack the skills to interpret results, update plans, or respond to early warning signals generated by these tools. So why project fail even when tools are used? Yan ang tanong natin, di ba? They are using, they are planning, they were adapting PERT, WBS, Gantt chart, everything. Now, why still project fails even when tools are used? Simple lang po. Projects frequently fail due to governance and leadership failures, not technical ones. Tools cannot compensate for weak leadership, unclear accountability, or politicized decision-making. When authority is fragmented and accountability is unclear, even the best plans collapse during implementation. Tandaan niyo po yan. Another common reason is stakeholder resistance and misalignment. Tools rarely capture power dynamics, community expectation, or political interest. Now, project fail when stakeholders feel excluded, threatened, or misinformed. Factors that charts and networks alone cannot manage. So, again, project fail because of lack of adaptability. Many plans are treated as fixed documents rather than living system. When conditions change, budget shift, leadership changes, or crisis emerge. Rigid adherence to original plans prevents timely adjustment, leading to delays, cost overrun, or abandonment. Again, project tools are necessary but not sufficient for success. They provide structure, discipline, and clarity, but they do not replace leadership, judgment, institutional capacity, stakeholder engagement, and adaptive governance. At the doctoral level, the real competency lies not in knowing how to use the tools, but in understanding when to rely on them, when to question them, and when to adjust beyond them. Okay? So I think that's it for this topic. Very interesting because I'm an IT practitioner actually. Okay, yes, Sir Hilbert.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, and classmates, good afternoon. Actually, sir, the project quick rejoinder, sir. Project tools can answer the pestle or the political, economic, socio-cultural, technological, environment, and laws. And it also explain the politicized condition. Under politicized condition, we have socialized, synergized, secularized, and securitized. Under those conditions, in politicized condition, makikita po natin, katulad po nung sinabi nyo kanina, project fails. Bakit? Politicized condition, hindi natin na-anchor yung technicalities based on political decision making. On the other hand, kung secularize yan or synergize yan, katulad yan, kung may opposition, kung IP area yung pag-put upan ng project, automatic may opposition kaagad. Why? It affects the socio-cultural spectrum of that community or society. Maraming salamat po, sir. Thank you, sir. Yun lang po.
Okay, thank you so much. No, yes, of course. Thank you so much to Sir Hilbert. No, again, you are absolutely correct that project tools are designed to help us respond to the present realities of the political, economic, social, cultural, technological, and legal environment. However, tools alone cannot neutralize a politicized condition. So when decision making is driven primarily by political interest rather than technical evidence, project tools become symbolic rather than functional. In such cases, now plans exist on paper, but implementation follows political convenience, resulting in misalignment between technical design and actual execution. Your point about politicized conditions leading to project failure is particularly important when technical recommendations are not anchored in political decision making, or worse, are overridden by it. No? Projects lost coherence. No? Timelines, budget, and risk mitigation strategies are ignored or selectively applied. No amount of WBS, Gantt chart, or CPM analysis can compensate for decisions that are politically expedient but technically unsound. So the distinction you made regarding the socialized, synergized, or secularized, and securitized, no? Condition is also even sharp. No? In a secularized or synergized context, opposition is not merely administrative, it is cultural and social. Let's say, for example, when a project enters an indigenous people area, resistance may arise immediately, not because the project lacks merit, but because it disrupts cultural norms, land rights, or social structure. Project tools are often fail here because they do not fully capture identity, belief system, and historical mistrust, which are critical in public sector projects. So this highlight a major limitations of project tools. They manage activities, not meanings. Tools can schedule tasks and allocate resources, but they cannot automatically resolve value conflicts, power struggles, or sociocultural sensitivities. No? Without proper anchoring, no, in stakeholder consultation, cultural mapping, and political negotiation, even technically excellent project face rejection or delay. So, in essence, no, project failure under politicized conditions happens not because tools are wrong, but because tools are applied without governance wisdom. Advanced project planning requires aligning technical rigor with political realities, cultural sensitivity, and ethical leadership. So when project tools are integrated with inclusive decision-making, respect for socio-cultural context, and adaptive governance, they become powerful instrument, not just for planning, but to legitimacy and sustainability. Maraming salamat din po, sir. Your reflection clearly shows why advanced project planning in public administration goes beyond tools. It requires deep contextual intelligence and responsible leadership. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, so do you have any sharing or questions?